Rubbery, Scorpion King, Uncanny Valley Cats, this dancing Star Wars alien, creepy Twilight baby, cartoony-looking car crash, and Samuel L. Jackson getting eaten by a shark. What do all these shots have in common? They've now become infamous for having terrible visual effects and CGI. But have you ever really thought about why? In this video, let's revisit some classics to analyze why these moments didn't exactly hold up. We'll break them down, find the mistakes, and by the end of it all, maybe further understand what makes CGI bad. First, let's start with Rubbery Scorpion King. In a franchise known for the clever integration of live action and CGI, it's crazy that in the final act of the sequel, after building up the character so much for the entire movie, we ended up with one of the most clowned-on moments of cinematic history. So how did this even happen? Well, since this was The Rock's very first acting gig, he still had commitments as a wrestler, and with so much to do in the ring, the man didn't have time to provide his facial scans to the visual effects artists, which is usually the bare minimum you need to create realistic CG characters. Without this reference, they kinda had to eyeball his likeness, which might have worked if he wasn't a main character, seen up close in all sorts of lighting conditions. Now let's do a side-by-side of this Scorpion King with the real Rock. Right away, you can tell what went wrong. His eyes bulge out too much, his nose is too lifted, and his teeth have no shadowing. Little things like this build up an overall image of the Scorpion King that feels just uncanny enough to not quite work. Now it might seem a bit unfair to judge the CGI of 2001, especially now that The Rock has been playing himself for the past 20 years. We all know his face so well by now that of course looking back, the Scorpion King looks funky. Through a lack of reference material and limited resources for the time, we got an unbelievable character in an otherwise believable movie. No! Except for that part. Now let's travel to a galaxy far, far away and meet the sexy singer, Cy Snootles. Oh, she can get it. Oh, wait, she? It? 20 years after George Lucas made the original trilogy, he had the weird idea to use updated technology to create special editions, with changing plot points, inserting all new shots, and in most cases, adding in aliens that were completely unnecessary. Now in the vastness of space, aliens can look like anything, and of course, everything is subjective. But the design of Cy Snootles is just wrong on so many levels. Tonally inconsistent and visually jarring. Aside from the ridiculous name, the gangly limbs, and a mouth that's a little too R-rated for Star Wars. Yo, put that away, girl, my family's here. Another reason this character stood out was the animation. Surrounded by live-action actors, dancing in ways our eyes are used to seeing, every tiny hop and hip shake is a little too Looney Tunes for reality. By making these singing aliens completely computer-generated, it broke the immersion of the scene, and Lucas lost the grittiness of the seedy underbelly that's supposed to be Jabba's palace. A place meant to be dangerous and mysterious ended up feeling ridiculous because of the slapstick animation. Now to fix this, they could have used puppets and oh, what's that? They did in the first place? Ugh. Sure, it's a little janky, but so were all the other creatures in the room, and we love them for that. It's a message Disney has finally heard, since they seem to be going back to good old miniatures and puppets with the newer shows and movies. And if they're gonna keep shoving Star Wars down our throats, at least the aliens will be fun to look at. And now we gotta talk about Deep Blue Sea. And for a movie that lasted a whole 1 hour and 45 minutes, people only remember this part.
We're gonna seal off this.
I can't imagine how the director, the crew, and the actors all thought this scene would go. From everyone's reactions, you'd think it was supposed to be serious, like scary or something, but the hilarious swap of Sam Jackson's determined expression to a floppy CGI ragdoll has remained one of the most unintentionally funny scenes in all of movie history. And to fully understand why, let's frame through and break it down. See, whenever you put CGI behind an actor, you need to mask that actor to be in front of it. Something called roto. As the shark comes up behind him, you'll see many areas where the roto isn't tight enough. It eats into the edges of his face and becomes too soft. On the flip side, when roto is too hard, you get things that look a little too cut out, and that's not good either. It's a tough balance, and when it's not done perfectly, you can tell. Another giveaway is the shark's teeth. To match CGI to what's real in the scene, you always have to base it off black and white levels, the darkest and brightest parts of the image. If we pick Sam Jackson's teeth as the white point, you'll see that the shark's teeth are way brighter to fit in the same world. In the next shot, shadows are missing from the actor's hands onto the floor. Also, the camera shake when he slams into the ground is way too artificial. only shifting up and down. So with all these tiny errors wrapped up together in a bad CGI burrito, it's no wonder how this serious moment became the laughingstock of the entire movie. And while we're talking about digital doubles bouncing around, let's revisit the psychological thriller Along Came a Spider, where we were blessed with this. You gotta give them credit for attempting such a complicated shot in the early 2000s, especially since it was pretty much the only visual effect in the entire movie. A lot was riding on it. It had to be such a traumatic experience that it haunts the main protagonist, serious enough to carry on themes of guilt, loss, and redemption, but the crash instead felt cartoony, not grounded at all in the real world. If we put a shot of the real car next to the CG one, we begin to see some discrepancies. The lens flares drown out the red of the car paint, losing the shadowing on the lower half. The people look too bright, showing that the renders of the CG humans could have maybe used some more time to cook. Subtle differences like these aren't noticeable right away, but the human eye starts to pick up on something weird happening. More than all the minor nitpicky stuff though, when you play it through, the animation of the car flips is what sticks out the most. We all know how heavy cars are, so to see one flip this many times in the air makes it feel weightless, and the entire scene pointless. And I love how this guy just goes flying. Someone saw Titanic. And yeah, this lady's head should have popped straight off by now. For a movie that was supposed to be a serious thriller, this whole sequence made it more like a comedy. Now on to another kind of car crash. Let's talk about this cursed baby. Look, I get it. Creating digital humans is hard enough, and for some reason, it's infinitely harder to get a baby looking right. More than a decade later, and we still haven't learned our lesson. But back in 2011, they had a huge problem to solve. Since she was supposed to grow rapidly, they needed to make her look like a baby, but at the same time, smarter and older than a baby, one that could show emotions beyond what a normal baby could. So to do this, they first tried an animatronic one that was so terrifying with its creepy dead eyes, the actors couldn't wait to get rid of it.
I don't want this right now.
So as a last resort, to make the baby otherworldly and ethereal, they decided to try it with CGI, taking photos of a real actress and aging it down to later paste over a real baby. But even though the visual effects studios CG modeled the baby accurately, the real babies they had on set behaved like babies do, looking around aimlessly in every direction. When the VFX artists took their heads and got rid of all their natural movements, the baby then became too eerily still. The second mistake was when they created CG eyeballs that could look exactly where they wanted it to. Sure, that was their goal all along, to have it appear calm and wise, but it just ended up feeling too controlled and unnatural. Of all the ways they tweaked and pushed around the facial features, when it was combined with live action, something got lost. So in the end, yes, a CGI baby was the lesser of two evils, but it goes to show that sometimes, even with a mountain of reference and a team of talented artists, some things are better off left alone. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. It's finally time to talk about cats. Anyway, to really understand the scope of everything that went wrong here, we gotta remember what the cats looked like back in the musical. The makeup at the time transformed ordinary humans into lifelike versions of the animals. But makeup is easy when you're just dealing with a 3-hour play. When you're on a movie shoot that could last days or even months, applying makeup consistently is just too much of a hassle. It also would have been hard using the avatar method, strapping cameras onto everyone's faces, so they just went, F it, let's put everyone in these bodysuits and dump it all on the VFX team to figure out. Once again, they completely underestimated and underappreciated the mountain of effort this would all take. The artists had to painstakingly create, light, render, track, and comp every patch of hair on every corner of their bodies. Look at this shot. In trying to cover up everything but the face with CGI, it ended up looking like you just took a face and glued it onto a cat. That's why it's uncanny. And what makes it all so much worse is how serious they took themselves. Like they really thought they were doing something here. It's too bad that even with all the talent on hand, professional dancers who gave everything to their performances, the only thing audiences will remember is the bad CGI. And since there were so many characters on screen at one time, and literally every shot needed visual effects, there simply wasn't enough time and manpower to get it all done. You see this? Do you have any idea the months it would take to get a shot like this to even make sense, let alone look good? Sure, they try to get as much reference as they could on set, even creating different kinds of real fur to match the CGI too later, but it just wasn't enough. The flawed direction they chose from the start, creating humanoid cats standing upright, dancing around in giant sets with smooth digital hair pasted onto their bodies, it was an avalanche of bad decisions that wasn't obvious enough until it was too late, and by then, it all came crashing down as one of the most spectacular failures of modern cinema. Look, if there's anything we can learn by looking at bad CGI from the past, it's that things haven't really changed all that much. Even to this day, the main problems are still poor design choices, limited time and budgets, and not enough appreciation for the craft of visual effects. After all, CGI is an art, something that deserves much more respect and recognition. But as long as movie studios are looking for the cheapest ways to make things, and audiences are looking for the fastest ways to consume it, the artists who work on these movies won't ever catch a break. All we can do is to better understand what makes CGI bad and cut them some slack when it is. Anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble. Hey, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.